Hi YouTube! This is Jane and today I will be painting a colorful watercolor portrait. Something about this painting, I named her Mia and she's part of a very small series of puppy girl portraits. I will do my best to explain my process during this video and hopefully you can apply some of my techniques into your own work. Before I start painting, I usually prepare a sketch on a separate spare piece of paper, which I then transfer onto a watercolor paper. In this case, I used rough cotton paper by FABRIANO, but I will list all the materials into description down below, so make sure to check that out. Regarding sketch, this one I drew with no reference upon recommendation. It was for training my imagination, but as you can see, the anatomy of the face and the figure is not very realistic. I suppose the exercise is helpful, but make sure you first drew lots and lots of faces from life, up to a point where you can memorize proper placement of features. But even though my puppy girl is a little bit incorrect, I am happy with her because of that sweet and naive look she has. But let's get to painting process. First thing that I paint is always skin and details of the face. If I'm not happy with how the face and the features turned out, I tend not to continue with the painting because there is no point in wasting material for a fancy background. First, skin layers are done wet on wet. I cover the whole face area with clean water and then slowly add light colors, while really trying to preserve enough light so that the face can shine a little bit. Adding multiple washes of light paint on top of each other will eventually create more saturated result. You have to dry each layer before adding more paint, so this requires a bit of patience, but it really pays off. I repeat this layering process about 5 times, then I add deeper shadows and reds. When using layering technique, what you need is stronger paper, ideally cotton one. Student grade paper gets very easily disrupted even after 3 layers. Lastly, I paint details of eyes, nose and lips with a tiny brush. I avoid using black paints for these important details because I feel that black is very strong and too bold for this type of composition. Instead, I add deep purple and blue tones. Background is something that I enjoy painting very much. As you can see, I'm adding splatters of color next to each other. In this painting, I did whole background with just one layer in which I used more saturated color and salt. This created visually interesting texture. Plan your coloring beforehand. I always use a spare piece of watercolor paper to put down all the colors I want to use for the background, just to see if they match together. This can save you unexpected results. Painting hair. When it comes to painting hair, I don't really have a technique in particular that I would stick to religiously. I like to experiment a lot, and hair of this lovely girl was not an exception. On top of it, the hair is really something that you can have fun with. In this particular portrait, I'm adding planned out colors to her hair with no particular order, and in the end I've decided to outline them with red watercolor just because I thought it would be interesting. And the last part of the process is usually adding highlights. Sometimes I really overdo this step. It makes such a significant difference on the painting, and I often forget when to stop. I use white ink or white gouache for this, and I have a dip pen for ink, but lately all the nibs I purchase fall apart very quickly. They skip and they are just such a pain for me to use, so I switch to thin brush. If you have any recommendations for good nibs I could use, please let me know, I would really appreciate it. In the end, I embellished the piece with golden and silver metallic watercolors. I felt it supported fantasy-like atmosphere of the painting and made the painting really stand out. Original of this painting as well as limited edition prints are currently available in my online store. Other than that, line art of this motif is now part of my coloring challenge I started to support my new Patreon account, so if you're interested in more tutorials, personal art reviews, resources, much more, support me on Patreon for at least $1 per month and you will get access to exclusive content from me. So that's it for today, I guess, and we'll see you next week. Bye!